Awesome. Good morning, guys. Again, normally I'm only up here once, but I've been up here twice now. This is completely different. Really quickly, I want you to just turn to your neighbor and ask them, like, how was your week? What's maybe a fun story? Thank you. We'll get started. So go ahead and turn to your neighbor and ask them how your week. Oh, all right. So go ahead and get started. So I'm normally not sitting down. I just want you to know that. But I officiated a wedding yesterday, so I was standing for a long time yesterday, so my feet are very tired. So I'm chilling here. But to start this morning, how many of you here grew up with VHS tapes? Yes? Okay. Sort of, kind of. So that's what I grew up on, was like watching VHS tapes. I remember when I was sick, I would often have, like, whenever I was, like, puking in bed. My parents would bring in, like, one of those TV trays, put on, like, a little TV, and have a VHS player on the front so you can stick in the VHS tapes. And we had probably almost all the Disney movies you could think of on VHS. And those were just, like, the classics. You would pop up and it'd be a little kind of grainy for a second, and all just those fun things that come with, like, a VHS tape. And one of my favorite Disney movies to watch was always Aladdin. Is anybody else here a fan of Aladdin? Love that movie. I think there's just so much like action and adventure. I also love a good musical. So all of those things wrapped into one movie. I also just love the plot. I love how Aladdin is this kid, this guy who is going out on the streets and just like stealing and manipulating, trying to just get by in life with his little monkey Abu. So fun. And as you guys know, like his life progresses, he ends up meeting the princess. He goes on this journey into this cave, and he finds, you guys know this, but he finds a lamp, right? This is the genie's lamp. And so he accidentally rubs it, and the genie appears, and he asks, "You have 3 wishes. What would you want me to do?" And you can only imagine if you were offered that. Like, if you could be offered anything in the world by a genie, what would you ask for? I just think, like, when the possibilities are there, you're like, there's so many things that you could ask for. It could be, man, like, I want to make sure that, if you're like my grandma, this would be her answer, like, that my whole family would be provided for. So, like, if you have siblings and they have student debt, like, man, all my student debt could be paid off, my family's debt could be paid off, like, they could own their own house. Like, maybe that's what you'd ask for. Maybe it'd be something bigger, like you'd ask for, like, world peace or something, I don't know. Whatever is, like, important to you, you might ask the genie, and you would have 3 wishes to figure that out. And what Aladdin figures out is, like, these wishes are good, but he has to be careful about what he asks for, right? Because if he asks the wrong thing, then the genie's going to give him something, and it may have been something that he wasn't even planning on asking for, but the way he worded it, the genie's going to give him something different. And so I love that story. I think that kind of resonates with all of us. Like, that'd be so cool if we just had the opportunity to get whatever we wanted. And today we're going to be talking about somebody in the Bible who's actually offered this by the Lord. Like, it's crazy that this film was made based upon all these like stories, but this is actually like a real story that happened. Is God asking a king what he wants? So we're going to take a look at this story, and we're going to start off in 1 Kings chapter 3. So if you want to go and flip there. Now, if you haven't been with us, I know I talked to a few of you guys that you're new here. I want to let you know we're going through a sermon series called More Than Story, and it's about, we're going through characters in the Bible, kind of starting from Genesis, going to the end, talking through major people in the Bible. And the reason that we're doing this is because we know that some of you guys have maybe grown up in church, and you know major people in the Bible. Some of you guys are like, I've never opened the Bible. I don't know who these people are. And so we want to give you the opportunity to hear about these different people and hear their stories. And know that it's not just a story, like it's not just something you read and you're like, okay, that was great to know. Like, there's truth about God in these stories. There's truth about us as people, and lessons that these people learn throughout their lives. And also the whole Bible. We talk about this often, but how the whole Bible points us to Jesus. So we're also going to explore how that happens as well. How does the life of this person point us towards Jesus? And today we're going to be talking about King Solomon. If you guys know nothing about King Solomon, I'm going to give you a brief overview of who this guy was. His father was David, who Mark had preached last week on David, if you were here. David was one of the most successful kings. He's well known by the Jews. He's very important. And so this was Solomon's dad. Okay? So Solomon was birthed out of a very interesting situation. His parents, his dad ends up committing adultery. He sleeps with this one woman who's already married, kills her husband, tries to cover it up, and the child that they produce ends up passing away during childbirth. So his brother passes away during this tragic situation. David ends up taking her as his wife, and sleeps with her again, and has Solomon. So Solomon has a very interesting already history from his parents and what's going on. But he has a very interesting story. So his dad was really big into pursuing after the Lord, making him known, and he was one of the most prosperous kings in Israel. Was King David. He got the kingdom started. All right, so he was an important guy, and in his heart, he really wanted to build God a house. If you guys read through the Old Testament, you see that God is a God who wants to be with his people. And God cannot be contained to a house, right? God is infinite. He's so much bigger than the world around us. But he's a God who wants to be with us. And so he's like, as you guys go about your lives, I want to dwell with you. My manifest presence, I want to be with you. So he dwells in this tent for many, many years. And David's like, I've gone on and I've built this city and I've built this house. God, what about you? I want to build you a house where you can dwell. That's not just a tent. And the Lord's like, I really appreciate your heart, but your son is actually going to do this. That was Solomon. So David gathers all of these supplies, and you can imagine Solomon as this little kid watching his dad bring in all these imports from various countries, wood and gold and workers, all these things to start keeping this temple ready to build. And Solomon's just this kid watching this. And his dad one day comes up to him and says, Solomon, you are going to inherit this kingdom. You are going to be the next king. And when you do, I want you to build this temple for the Lord. So that's his task, to build this temple. And Solomon sets out to do that. Now here's the catch. How many of you in here are 20 right now? Yeah? A few? Okay, what about if you're 19 or 21? You're right around there. Okay. Solomon was 20 years old when he became king. So imagine that you're inheriting an entire kingdom at this moment. That for me, I'm 26. That for me doesn't settle well. I'm that's a lot of responsibility. I don't think I can handle that. And that's exactly what Solomon was thinking. He's like, I'm 20 years old. I'm not for sure what to do about this kingdom. So I want us to read through this story in 1 Kings chapter 3 and see what happens with Solomon. One night he goes to bed and he gets a dream from the Lord. And in this dream, God's asking him, what do you want? What would you like me to do for you? The most open-ended question by the Lord. So I think this is really cool that this is happening. And this is King Solomon's response. We're going to start in verse 7. It says, Now, O Lord my God, you have made me king instead of my father David. But I am like a little kid who doesn't know his way around. And here I am in the midst of your own chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they cannot be counted. Give me an understanding heart, that I may govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for wisdom. So God replied, because you've asked for wisdom in governing my people with justice, and have not asked for long life or wealth or death of your enemies, I will give you what you asked for. I will give you a wise and understanding heart, such as no one else has ever had or will have. And I will also give you what you did not ask for, riches and fame. No other king in the world will be compared to you for the rest of your life. And if you follow me and obey my decrees and my commands, as your father David did, I will give you a long life. And he wakes up from his dream and realizes that he just had this dream from the Lord. Imagine you were in Solomon's shoes. What would you have been thinking? I just asked the Lord for wisdom, and he just said, yep, I'll give you wisdom, and then I'll give you all the things that you didn't ask for. I think this is really interesting, because I don't know what you guys would have asked for. I don't know if I would have asked for wisdom. I might have asked, Lord, give me a great army to make sure this is a protected country or whatever. I don't know what I would have asked for. But Solomon asked for wisdom, and God's like, yes, I'll give you that and everything else with it. So Solomon dedicates his life then to pursuing after wisdom. And I think that's a really interesting idea. He's pursuing wisdom at all costs. So this morning we're going to take a look at Solomon, and we're going to take a look at his story, and 3 different things that he ended up pursuing majorly in his life, and what we learned from that. I think it's interesting to look at what he was pursuing, because I want you guys to think about what are you pursuing in life right now. I mean, you guys are pursuing degrees, you're pursuing maybe relationships, friendships, wanting to start a family one day. Like, all these things might be on your radar of like, that's what I'm pursuing in life. And I just want us to like put that under a microscope for a minute, look at what we're pursuing, and compare it to King Solomon. What were some things that this major figure in the Bible was pursuing? And how do they compare? And what do we learn from that? So the first thing that we see with King Solomon is he's pursuing wisdom. This is the first thing. He's after this pursuit of wisdom. And God grants him this like supernatural wisdom. So he has people from all over coming and seeking his wisdom on various things. And what I really appreciate him is this prayer of his, when he's talking to the Lord in this dream, and he says, Lord, I want wisdom. What he's admitting is he's like, I can't do this by myself, Lord. I'm limited, I'm a human being. I can't do this by myself. And he wants to be a good leader. So he knows, like, God, if you give me this kingdom, I want to steward the success that I have right now really well. And from all of us, I think we're going to have seasons of life where you may be really successful. And how do you navigate that? Like, do you have pride when you're going through that? And you're like, man, like, this is my own accomplishment. I'm really happy about this. Is it success because someone else made a way for you to be successful? I think Solomon recognized, he's like, this success is not going to be of my own. And so, God, I want to steward that as best as I can. So, as he's pursuing wisdom, the kingdom gets better and better and better. It grows, it's prosperous. God gives him peace, so he's not having to worry about war all the time. He makes a lot of treaties with nations around him, so he's gaining all these resources. He's really, getting everything he wants. And if you guys know anything about history, then you probably know this. But when societies are like poor and in the middle of war, they're laser focused, right? They're focused on surviving, and they're focused on winning the war, whatever's going on. Makes total sense, right? But then after all of that, once there's peace, people have more time. They can pursue what they want to pursue. This is where you see, this is a slight tangent, but you see, like, with the Roman Empire, people started becoming more leisurely. Same with the Greeks. Like, they had time to think, which is why these, like, major philosophers come out of, like, Greek culture. Is because they had time to just sit around and think and explore different ideas. And so this is exactly what Solomon did. He's like, I have time. I'm going to think. I'm going to look at the world and gain wisdom from it. He wrote, I don't know how many proverbs of just wisdom that he learned. He also wrote a few songs too as well. And if you have heard the book of Proverbs, it's literally written by King Solomon. And it's just a list of like short little sayings of wisdom that he learned. But something that he learned in his wisdom, that the first thing that he learned was that you fear God. That's where wisdom starts. Is if we're pursuing after wisdom, we can go in all different directions. But if God's not at the center of it, it's not worth pursuing. And I really like this idea. Because as you start thinking about it, as you read through Proverbs, it's all about how when you gain wisdom, it actually leads to a blessing. You can go and put this up on the screen, but wisdom often leads to blessings. Proverbs is not you do this and you instantly get this. But they are like, hey, if you live your life this way, you'll start learning and growing and prospering in life. And so it's a whole book about that, which I think is amazing. So he recognized that God, you've created this world in a very specific way. And if I choose to go against that, obviously it's not going to lead to prosperity. But if I'm going with the grain of the world, if I'm going with how you created it to be, then there's all these blessings that flow from it naturally. So think about this. There's a proverb that talks about planning. I am a planner. I enjoy planning things. Well, a couple of things. Trips and stuff, I'm not a big planner. Don't enjoy that. But planning, for instance, it talks about how planning leads to abundance. But if you're foolish and you're hasty with your decisions, it's going to lead to poverty. Okay, really interesting, right? If you're planning for the future, you're going to have abundance in that. But if you're just making snap decisions, you're being hasty in life, you might actually end up in poverty. You see this as like people who does anybody do budgets? Yeah, a few of you guys. I started doing budgets when when I started to get to college. And let me tell you, it changed my perspective on how I view finances because I was like, oh, if I want to start saving up for a car or a house one day, I need to start putting money away like right now. And so because of the savings that I was able to do in college, it led me to having the things that I have now because I was saving for that. Or now, like my wife and I are starting to look for a house, and so we're trying to plan out and figure out how much we want to put back to save for a house. So as we're planning, this could actually lead to something really, really good. And because we're thinking about it, it might happen. There's another proverb. This sounds really simple, but it's really profound. That fools don't listen, but wise people do. Super simple, right? Fools don't listen, but wise people do. And the reason that's important, right, is because if you're just going around, you probably have these coworkers that they're off doing their own thing, causing a lot of chaos wherever you work, and you're like, this is not working out for any of us. Like, this just is not how it's supposed to work. But then you have people who are humble, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to ask questions, and I want to figure it out as I go. And those are being like the best employees, right? And so you probably experience these two different types of people in your jobs. Solomon just notices this, and he points out, he's like, if you want to be foolish, stop listening to people. But if you really want to be wise and discerning, start listening. Start paying attention to things. So Solomon's gaining all this wisdom, and what he finds out is that it's not the most convenient thing, right? If I want to plan for the future, it's going to take time and effort to do these things. But if I'm pursuing wisdom, it's going to be worth it. So I want to ask us, how do we pursue after wisdom? This is something that Solomon did right. How do we pursue after that? As I said before, he found out that if we start with fearing God first, that's where we begin. Because everything else is going to be put in place when that happens. I want to encourage you guys to pray this prayer that Solomon prayed in 1 Kings 3:9. Give me an understanding heart. For me, I know working as a pastor here, when I read this verse, this has kind of been a constant prayer of mine throughout my life that I've started to cultivate recently. Is God, sometimes there's days I walk in here and I have to make 20 decisions and I have no idea what I'm doing. I just have to be like, Lord, help me, please help me. I need your guidance right now. So for you, it might just be daily praying that. Like, God, I'm in charge of something. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I'm leading a group project and I don't know what I'm doing. God, would you just give me a heart of wisdom? And be like Solomon in that. My second thing, this is going to be really obvious, but so good for you, is to start reading through the Bible and other Christian literature. If you want to go and put up those resources, Lydia. If you're looking, how do I gain wisdom? Where do I go in the Bible? Start with the book of Proverbs. As I said, it's this whole book filled with wisdom. I'd highly recommend just reading through it. Ecclesiastes, we're about to talk through Ecclesiastes and what that was about. It's another great book. Colossians and 1 Peter talk about how do we live as a Christian? How do we endure suffering? Like, all these things that are very wise and things that we can learn and grow with, read through those and pray through them and start growing in these attributes. I'm also just going to throw up a list of books that I've read or I've heard of that are very, very formational. So I'm going to read those to you. So actually, if you want to go back, I think there's a few on there. If anybody's read any of C.S. Lewis, he's an amazing thinker. Mere Christianity. It's talking through like major problems in the world, like the problem of evil, these various other things, and how Christians like have this perspective on it. Timothy Keller, I read this book when I was in high school. It's called The Reason for God. He points out like a case for like why God exists, and is refuting arguments of like other people say this, but here's how Christians would respond to that. Fantastic book. Other books that we can read, if you want to keep going. I don't know if you've heard of Brother Lawrence. He wrote a book called Practicing the Presence. This book is widely known in various Christian groups. This guy was known for like doing the dishes and like weeping in prayer because he was so connected with the Lord. He saw like the most tiny things in life as an opportunity to worship the Lord. And so it's this little short book of sayings and things that he had written down. It's a little thing, it's a little nugget of wisdom. I highly recommend it. Mark, if you talk to Pastor Mark, he loves Dietrich Bonhoeffer. If you don't know who that is, he was a pastor during the time of World War II. He's living in Germany under the rule of Hitler, and he had to figure out how do we disciple people in the midst of this evil and perverse culture right now. So he wrote a fantastic book called The Cost of Discipleship. Recently, in the past few years, we had a guy come in, his name is Frank Turek. He's somebody who defends the Christian faith. He wrote a book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. This book lays out like a case for Christianity. It's one of the most like, if you're trying to talk to people about Christianity, it's one of the most like clear cases I've ever seen of like why do we believe what we believe. So those are just some resources. If you guys want to grow in wisdom, like start studying, start learning, just like you would be doing in school. Take your faith that same way. Start studying and growing and learning. So first off, Solomon pursued wisdom. The second thing he pursued after was the world. Already maybe you're like, okay, sounds like this isn't going in a good direction. It's not. Solomon got rich. He got lazy in his faith. We actually find out through the book of Ecclesiastes that Solomon's like, whatever I saw, like whatever I wanted, I got. For us today, that's like if you know like the button on Amazon where it's like one click and it's like purchased or being shipped to you. It's like whatever he wanted, he just had to click that button and he'd get whatever he wanted all the time. He's like, I didn't spare anything. I took whatever I wanted as it came. And it sounds nice, but we find out some wisdom in Scripture. We're going to read through this passage, 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. And this is a warning against pursuing after the world, because here's what happens. It says, do not love this world, nor the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and a pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from the world. And this world is fading away, along with everything that people crave. But everyone who does what pleases God will live forever. This beautiful, beautiful nugget of truth, that the world is going to give you things that are just fading away. But when you're doing things that please the Lord, like those are the things that last forever. And we see this with Solomon. First off, the cravings of the flesh, like those things that satisfy our desires. He pursued after possessions. He went after wealth. We find out that he had, which is insane, 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's literally insane. Now, just a little caveat. These were probably like for political purposes of you would marry somebody and then you'd have like a treaty between those two countries that would be like peaceful. But 700 wives. Now, I'm married. No, you do not want to marry 700 people. That is literally insane. I don't know what was going through his head, but when he's like, I have whatever I wanted, it's true. And you can see him going from very wise, I'm just going to say it, to very stupid moves that he did. So we see that he got whatever he wanted. It talks about then in this passage, a craving for everything that you see. We see that he built extravagant buildings. He was the most popular king in his day since he had fame. And then this was also interesting. There's a little note in Scripture that says that silver in Solomon's day was as nothing. Like, people didn't consider silver worth anything because gold was so abundant. Like, what sort of country are you living in where gold is like the thing to have? I think that's amazing. And he had this prosperity. But the thing is, this last point that 1 John talks about is the pride in our own achievements and our possessions. God had actually commanded kings not to have lots of wealth, not to have many wives, and this is a really weird caveat, but also not to have a lot of horses. And it's kind of this idea of like, are you going to trust God to protect your country? Or are you going to have all these horses and chariots and a military army? And this is exactly what Solomon pursued after. And so he pursued after the things of the world, and it didn't come to anything. He didn't actually get what he truly wanted. So the truth that we find out from Solomon's pursuit of all this is that all that we crave is fading away. And all that God loves is forever. So those cravings that we have with the world, like those things are fading away. And we can't pay attention to those. We have to pay attention to what God is asking us to do. So the question is, what do you crave? What are those things that you absolutely crave? Is it just simply like, I just want to be respected with people? That can be something that you crave. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be if you let that simmer within you enough. And so you just want more money. I know I've talked to some college students out on campus. I'm like, yeah, so like, what are you studying? Why are you studying it? And they're like, I just want to make a lot of money. I'm like, okay, like, fair point. But like, if that's your only aim in life, okay, that's not going to get you what you actually want. It's not going to satisfy those deeper things within you. If it's power, like I just want to be a CEO of companies, so I can be my own boss. I can tell people whatever I need them to do, they'll do it. Like, do you create that power for a good purpose, for good, like I want to be able to serve people? Or is it this like selfish, like I just want to be in charge, I want to be the boss? These types of things pop up all the time, and we have to be aware of them. We have to ask ourselves, like, should we even invest our time in that? Is it worth it? Because those things are going to be what fades away. I want to also challenge you with this, of what God's asking you to pursue is often going to be time-consuming and challenging. And it's not going to be the easiest route. And there's a reason for that. Because as you're going about life, those temporary things are obviously going to be like quick moments of pleasure, right? But those things that actually take time, your character, your faith, they take time to develop. And so the Lord's like, those are things we're pursuing, not these other things. So, at the end of the day, Solomon pursues after the world, and he goes against God's wisdom. And then he lands in this book. Towards the end of his life, he writes the book of Ecclesiastes. And what we find out is that towards the end of his life, he started pursuing after meaning. Because he felt that meaning was found in all of these things that he was going after. And then he found out none of it actually satisfied him. And I think Ecclesiastes is one of the best books ever written. Because it shows us, like, hey, this was somebody who he got everything he wanted, and at the end of his life, he was still miserable. He still did not enjoy life. He came to this conclusion. He's like, life is short, and it's worthless if the Lord's not a part of it. Again, that kind of comes back to the fear of the Lord, the beginning of wisdom. He's like, yeah, when God's not a part of this, it's not worth it. Which is kind of crazy, right? Now, think about this. If you die, everything that you've accomplished, whether that's you built up a bunch of wealth, maybe that's passed down to somebody, and then that person is responsible for all the money you've made. And they might go spend it on something selfish, or they might not invest it properly. If it's, you built a building, like if any of you in here are architects, right? You're building this beautiful building, but who's to say, like, we're not going to enter into a time of war, and that building's going to get destroyed? Or an organization is going to come in and, like, wreck it. Like, we're going to die, and the world's going to be left to other people, and our accomplishments are slowly going to fade off the background. That's what Solomon was figuring out. And he's like, well, where does meaning actually come from? It's not coming from all these achievements. Even wisdom. He was pursuing after wisdom. And he said, wisdom isn't even worth pursuing because in the end, both the wise and the foolish die. So what's the point? What's the point of even gaining wisdom? He even doubts like his own pursuits at that point. And what he finds out is, if God's a part of it, then even the most trivial things I do, even the smallest things, have meaning and purpose. And it's so true. I think all of us who have been following after the Lord for some time now, you see that. Like, you see those moments when you may have had a small interaction, and then the Lord just does something with that. And you're like, how did that even happen, right? For us Christians nowadays, like, we have the ability to go tell people the gospel. Like, we have the ability to say, hey, God loves you and wants to save your soul from your sins. Like, what better message is there to go tell people? And we are all on mission. And so every single day, we get to help people come to this realization that Jesus is our Lord and we need to be following after him. Because salvation is found in him. The best message in the world. And every single day we get to live that purpose, not intention. So it gives us a focus and a clarity. But check out what Solomon ended up coming to the conclusion with. In Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13, it says this. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Here's what he found out. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Your entire purpose in life is to fear God and keep his commandments. So the truth in all this is that every pursuit in life loses the overall meaning when God is not in the picture. So those things that you think will give you meaning, eventually in life, if we have wisdom and we look far down the road, don't. And I want you guys to have purpose. I want you guys to find deep meaning in life because that's going to help root you. But he found out that without the Lord, that's not there. So, for us, how do we pursue after that? One very simple practice you can be doing. Every morning when you wake up, spend time with the Lord and pray over your day. God, I have this class. I have this class. I have this project I need to work on. God, I realize that without you, all of this is meaningless. So God, I want you to be a part of it. I want you to just show me where you're at in all of this. So that way when I'm pursuing after it, I know there's meaning in the midst of it. Maybe it's you just make Christ visible at your workplace, wherever that may be. Instead of trying to pursue after like your own achievements or pursue after income, make it about serving other people and serving God. That sounds really basic, but make it more about just earning money. Make it actually about serving people and bringing joy to their day. Make it about pleasing the heart of the Lord. Or finally, maybe you have to reevaluate your definition of success. How do you define it? Do you define success as making a lot of money, gaining a lot of fame and popularity? Or do you define success as, man, I love people today. I love people well. Those are the people that people truly actually remember. Maybe they're not famous, but they are well known by the people that they care about. So this is what Solomon did. He pursued after wisdom, he pursued after the world, and he pursued after meaning. And he discovered so many different things in the midst of that. We're going to end with this. So we want to talk about how would these things lead us to Jesus. So Jesus, during his ministry, encountered a situation with religious leaders. Okay? And they were talking to him about how we don't believe that you're the Messiah. There was bickering going back and forth. And he brought up King Solomon. And he said, hey, there was one person in King Solomon's life who knew what they were doing. And this was someone named the Queen of Sheba. We don't actually know her name. But it says that she desired to pursue after this wisdom that Solomon had. So she traveled from like wherever, I actually don't know where she was at, but traveled from wherever she was to go find Solomon to ask for this wisdom. Now, why is this important? Jesus is bringing this up because he said something better than Solomon is here, and you should be pursuing after that. What he was talking about is himself. He's like, if you're pursuing after me, that is way more important than anything else you do. So your pursuits, even your greatest pursuit, is going to be less than pursuing after Jesus. No matter how much wisdom you gain, how much worldliness you gain, how much meaning you gain, it's nothing in comparison to Jesus and pursuing after him. This is what Jesus said about pursuing meaning and what ends up happening. In Matthew chapter 16, he says this. He says this to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. I love this. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds. Jesus makes this very clear. Do you actually care about yourself? Do you see how much worth and value you hold? It's not in all of your achievements. It's who you were created to be. Like your very essence is important to the Lord. And he's saying, are you willing to give up everything? Like, are you willing to even give up your soul for the world? Or are you willing to say, God, I'm going to lay down my life for you and gain everything else? The Lord's like, start with laying down your life. Because all these other things we saw in the world don't matter. They don't have meaning. They don't have ultimate wisdom. So nothing is worth it if you forfeit your soul. And we learn this truth from Jesus. He's saying that your soul is not worth getting everything you want. That's hard for you. I hope it's harder for you too. But it's hard because we want to gain a lot of things. I agree, but it's not worth our soul. But your soul is worth giving it to the one who can save it. So my plea to you is, I don't know where you guys are at in your faith. I don't know where everyone's at. If you haven't started pursuing after Jesus, and having this relationship with him, come talk to me after service. Just come talk to me. Because ultimately, that is worth pursuing over everything else. But for us Christians, we can learn from Solomon, and we can see what he was pursuing. And I hope that maybe you can see, okay, the things that I'm pursuing in this life, I need to start adjusting. I need to make the Lord that priority. Still seek after wisdom, still seek after meaning, but I don't need to be falling after the world. That's not where meaning is going to be found. And ultimately, I hope, and my prayer for you guys, is that that's going to give you guys such a solid foundation living the rest of your college career. That's going to pursue you into a good career, a good life, filled with lots of blessings, is because you put your priority in order. So with that, let's pray. Father, I just want to thank you for Solomon's life, and I want to thank you for him going before us. God, we know that it's really great when someone else has experienced life, that we can ask for their wisdom and their help. And we saw somebody, Lord, who got everything they ever wanted. Something that we can only dream of and imagine. But yet it wasn't worth the cost of what it was. And so God, as we pursue after you, Is you just bring so much meaning into our lives and so much purpose. Lord, that as we talk to people around us, that we're just different because we see the world differently. Our priorities are different. Our love is different. Our meaning and our purpose is different, God. So we thank you for Solomon. We thank you for his wisdom. Lord, I just pray that as we leave here, we pursue after Jesus with all that we have. Knowing that he is the ultimate thing that is worth it. So thank you for your son. Thank you for his sacrifice.